everybody, it's Derek with the Ultimate Hang, and today I want to show you how to tie the Becket hitch. Now, a lot of people have been asking me about the Becket hitch recently because I've highlighted it on a few reviews that I've done. The Becket hitch has been around for a long time. Down in South America, they simply refer to it as the hammock knot. Now, today we call it the Becket hitch thanks to Ashley Book of Knots. Those who are familiar with knots, those Boy Scouts, will recognize this hammock or this knot looks very similar to a sheet bend, and truly they are very similar. The real difference is a sheet bend will take, you know, a rope or a cloth and bend to make a loop, and then you tie through that bend in the loop. Where a Becket hitch actually has a permanent loop instead of a bend, so it's a little more secure that way. But that's really the only difference. It ties the same and it unties the same. Now, the Becket hitch is great for hammocks. It ties easily, it unties easily, even under a load it doesn't bind. It's great for beginners, and it's also great for those that have been around the block a little bit, and because it's such a robust knot, it can be used. It's one of those things you put in your back pocket because you may encounter a situation where the Becket hitch works great. Now, the Becket hitch is great also because it's very light, it's quick to tie, and has infinite adjustability. Compare that to the Marlin spike hitch, for example, which is also a fairly popular hammock knot. The Becket hitch doesn't require a toggle, doesn't require extra hardware, and it doesn't really depend on, you know, where that loop is settled. For example, on the Marlin spike hitch, if it works correctly or not. So if you tie it right, you're good to go. So it's a little bit lighter and faster than even the Marlin spike hitch. So what you need is a loop and a suspension. That loop can be on the webbing side, let's say on the tree side, or in like a lot of hammocks, we have the loop on the hammock side. So it really doesn't matter which side you tie it on, whichever your suspension, it works really well. Now, I will give a word of caution. The Becket hitch works best with, you know, when you're tying to webbing or a thicker rope. I don't recommend the Becket hitch with like Amsteel, the very slippery like Amsteel you see a lot. So if you have Amsteel loop, that may pull through. What works really good is a sheathed, like a Spectra line that's sheathed, like you might see on the Hennessy hammock, for example. So it's still a lightweight option, but it'll hold better. So let me show you how it works. All right, I've got my loop and I've got my suspension. In this case, we're going from a long suspension, let's say a Hennessy hammock. I'm going to go to my webbing loop on my around the tree. I'm going to go up through that loop, and this is where you have the infinite adjustability. You just dial it in where you need it, and once I've got it dialed in, I'm going to go probably pull it about an inch or two tighter than I need, because once I tie it, that gives me the flexibility to do the loops and then let it settle back down. So pulling it about 2 inches further than it needs to go works really well. So pull it through, then we're going to go around the back of that loop, and then I've created a hole right here, and then I'm going to go through that hole. And that is the Becket hitch. Let's zoom in a little bit closer. All right, here is a more close-up look at that Becket hitch. And this one is a slippery version. You can see that I haven't pulled the suspension all the way through, the rope all the way through, so I can actually untie it pretty quickly. Here's my loop. I'm going to go up through my loop, pull my suspension where I need it. I'm going to go around the back and then pull it through here, just like that. And then you see how that settles. That's why pulling it through an inch or two helps. Now, once it's bound, once you tighten that up, sometimes pulling that slippery part through is a little tough. And the trick here is you see the loop. I'm just going to pull that loop down. This is the trick, right? Just kind of pull that down, and then it loosens it just enough to pull it through. So again, up through the back, or up through the loop, around the back, and pull it through. Now this works equally well with webbing. So, and I've got some webbing right here. If my suspension were webbing, I can do the same thing. Go up through, adjust, go around the back, and pull it through. Becket hitch. Untie, pull this down, and then pull my slippery one through. Now I've got, this is a thin Spectra line from a Hennessy hammock. What I do with these lines is do a kind of a modified double Becket hitch. So I go up through the back, or up through the loop again, adjust where I need it, and instead of going around the loop one time, I'm actually going to go around one more time, like this, and then pull it through. So that's a modified double Becket hitch with the slippery option. And I found that this holds great for these smaller diameter Spectra lines. We'll loosen that up, pulling that down, and then I can adjust it. So again, this also has that advantage of fairly quick adjustability, where like a Marlin spike hitch, a lot of that adjustability is lost in the knot because of how you have to twist and pull it. With practiced hands, it gets a little bit better. This one, you just very quickly modify it, go around the back, pull it through, you're done.